There are three things you can count on in life: death, taxes, and fantasy football, bringing the pain every single week. Sure, there were some great performances in week 14, and hopefully you have those guys on your fantasy teams, but there are also some absolute busts this week, some big time injuries. Yes, as usual, fantasy football brought the pain. I'm going to break down the guys that probably not only wrecked your week 14, but might be wrecking your entire season in 2025. Now, let's start with a few guys that, sure, they didn't live up to expectations in week 14, but you shouldn't be panicking about these guys, assuming you're still playing and in your fantasy playoffs. Starting with Bijan Robinson, yeah, it was a tough matchup. He did not have a big game here, but I mean, come on, do I need to say anything here? It's Bijan Robinson. He's going to be fine. As will James Cook. Okay, he didn't smash against the Bengals this week, but he smashed almost every week of the season. Don't freak out here. Just keep him locked in your lineup. And I know a lot of people worried about George Pickens, like, oh, he wasn't really trying in that game. Look, we've seen George Pickens without CeeDee Lamb be an absolute monster. We've seen George Pickens with CeeDee Lamb be an absolute monster. No worry here whatsoever. And Derrick Henry, okay, he hasn't been as good as he was last year, but you can't really panic on a guy who had 25 carries this week in an offense that actually looked much better. But you might want to panic a little bit on De'Von Achane. Obviously left that game early. And look, he left that game early and still had a phenomenal fantasy game. I mean, this guy has been an absolute stud for fantasy. One of the things I did get very right this year, I got plenty wrong too, though. But one of the things I got very right was De'Von Achane. But this would be a crushing blow for your fantasy team if he was to miss week 15. Now, on the plus side, Mike McDaniels after the game did say that De'Von Achane on his rib injury was available to come back in the game in an emergency. I just chose to not put him in there. So it doesn't sound like this is a serious injury. Let's hope he's good to go in week 15 and the entire fantasy playoffs, because honestly, this guy has been a league winner this year, and I doubt it's going to change in the fantasy playoffs. If he's healthy, good to go, this guy is going to carry teams to fantasy championships. So let's just hope Mike McDaniels is telling the truth and De'Von Achane is good to go. And I wish I could say something similar about CeeDee Lamb. I mean, we saw it on that Thursday night game. He was having a great game, hit his head, and he did the Tua fencing pose, right? Where his fingers did the thing. I'm not going to put the picture up or anything. We don't need to see it again. We've seen it. But they took him out, did a concussion check, instantly took him into the locker room, and like 5 minutes later said he's out for the game. This is worrisome because this seems like a serious concussion, and we have some precedents this year. Remember, CJ Stroud missed multiple weeks with a concussion. Jackson Dart missed 2 games. And if you want to go apples to apples here, T. Higgins got concussed, and then he missed a game, and then he was able to return this week, of course. So we're probably looking at a minimum 1 game absence for CeeDee Lamb here, but it could be 2 or 3. And again, any games missed right now for one of your stud players is absolutely devastating, because this is the fantasy playoffs. It's win or go home every week of the season now. So look, there is a chance that he can clear protocol. That's the thing about concussions. It's not like a knee, an ankle, where it's like, oh, this 2-week timeline or 3-week timeline. No, he's got to clear. He's got to go through the steps. And remember, it's not up to the Cowboys. It's not up to the NFL. It's up to an independent neurologist. So this is just going to be one of those things where if you got CeeDee Lamb, you're just going to be, full-fledged anxiety mode until we find out if he's going to play or not. But chances are, based on the way he, the actions with his fingers, it seems pretty severe. I'd be really surprised if he doesn't miss at least 1 game. Hey, real quick before I get to the rest of the names on this list, let me just ask, if you're enjoying this content or any of the content we have put out for you this year, do me a quick favor, take 1 second, hit that subscribe button. I don't know if we're going to get to 100K by the end of the season, but it would be a nice Christmas present. Help us out if you haven't subscribed yet. And I'd be really surprised if Jayden Daniels plays any more games this year. It looked like, hey, a lot of people grabbed Jayden Daniels off the waiver wire. I know I did in a lot of leagues. I started Jayden Daniels in some must-win matchups this week, and don't think I'm going to win those matchups, because not only was he terrible in this game, he then left early in the second half when he re-injured the elbow that was already injured. You got to think now, the Commanders out of it. No chance to make the playoffs. No reason to even play Jayden Daniels anymore. You got to think they're going to shut him down. They haven't said, at what time I'm recording this at least, they haven't said anything official whether he's going to play or whether they're going to shut him down. But why bring him back, right? So, look, hopefully Jayden Daniels did not end your season in week 14. I know he probably ended some of my seasons in week 14. Hopefully he did not end yours, but does not look like we're going to have Jayden Daniels for the playoffs here. I do want to say real quick, Terry McLaurin. I know a lot of people are going to be panicked about Terry McLaurin. I'm not panicked about Terry McLaurin. Sure, I would prefer Jaden Daniels be out there, but let's not forget, 2 weeks ago against the Broncos with Marcus Mariota, Terry McLaurin went off. Now, I know Marcus Mariota did not come in and look very good in this game, but it's a lot different when you know you're the number one guy and you're taking all the first team reps versus you don't think you're playing this week and suddenly you got to come in an emergency. Mariota, no, he's not the best, but he's good enough. I think Terry will still be fine, but Jaden Daniels would be shocked if we see him at all this year. But no offense may be impacted by injury more than the Indianapolis Colts. Daniel Jones injured his non-injured leg. Remember, he already had that fractured fibula. Well, now he injured the other leg, and it sounds like the dreaded A word. And no, I'm not talking about ACL. I'm talking about the other, probably worse A word, Achilles. Saw him grab for that Achilles. Shane Steichen, after the game, said it was an Achilles injury. Didn't say an Achilles tear, but an Achilles injury. Almost certainly Daniel Jones' season is over. Almost certainly for the fantasy playoffs, at least his season is over. I doubt if it really is an Achilles tear, his season is absolutely over. If it's not a full tear, maybe he can return at some point if the Colts play deep enough, but almost no chance we're going to see him for the next 3 games here. And this is a big blow to the entire offense because the backup QB is rookie Riley Leonard, who played for the not in the college football playoff Notre Dame Fighting Irish last year, and he came in and only threw for 145 yards on 29 attempts. I mean, you see right here, Daniel Jones, 8.6 yards average. Riley Leonard, only 5, no touchdowns and interception. Now, I will say, Alec Pierce, Michael Pittman, they still had okay games here in tough matchups, right? Michael Pittman, 9 catches, 79 yards. Alec Pierce, 5 catches for 80 yards. But we just cannot feel as good about the offense. Jonathan Taylor did score here. He also fumbled, but again, only 3.5 yards per carry. Granted, this was a tough matchup against the Jaguars, but guess what? They have a tough playoff schedule too. They've got to face the Seahawks and the Jaguars again in the fantasy playoffs. You're obviously not benching Jonathan Taylor, but I'm starting to wonder if the Jonathan Taylor that you had all year, the guy who looked like he was going to destroy fantasy football, not sure we're going to get that guy in the fantasy playoffs. And we can't feel great about Pierce or Michael Pittman. And I didn't even mention Tyler Warren here, who only had, 2 catches for 15 yards. Seemed like he took the biggest hit here. We got to be pretty worried about the entire Colts offense with Riley Leonard under center, not Daniel Jones. That is something I never thought I'd say, but here we are. And I'm very nervous about Ashton Jeanty right now as we head into the fantasy playoffs. I knew it was going to be rough sledding against the Broncos, but it's like he's going to get 15 plus carries. He's going to get goal line work. He's going to catch some passes. This was worse than I even thought. Only 10 carries for 30 yards. Only 2 catches in this game on 4 targets. And what's worse, I think it's worse. I don't know if it's worse, but Geno Smith injured his throwing hand, so we saw Kenny Pickett come in the game here. Now Kenny Pickett, again, he was better, I would say. 8 for 11, 97 yards, 8.8 yards per attempt, a touchdown here, but he didn't seem to be looking Ashton Jeanty's way quite as much as Geno Smith had. But what's really concerning for me here for Ashton Jeanty is, and I've mentioned this a few times this year, this guy's got to play the Eagles and the Texans over the next 2 games. So even if you're in the fantasy playoffs with this guy, you can't feel great in those matchups. Now, he does get the Giants in Week 17, so if you're still playing in Week 17 somehow with Ashton Jeanty, he could have a good game that week, but man, you can't feel good. He's the running back. Coming into this week, he was the running back 14 in PPR. He'd only gone over 20 fantasy points twice all year in PPR. Just has not lived up to expectations. Not fully his fault. Bad situation here for Ashton Jeanty, and I don't think it's going to get better until maybe Week 17, and by then it's probably going to be too late. And sadly, there's just no hope here for Justin Jefferson at this point. We thought maybe, we put Justin Jefferson on the booms as like that risky flex, and it's crazy because all the rest of our players, although I haven't seen Nico Collins play yet, but all the rest of our players did pretty well, and then Justin Jefferson, the guy who should be no doubt you start this guy, did horrible. 2 catches for 11 yards on 4 targets. Look, J.J. McCarthy didn't throw for a ton of yards, only 163 yards, but he threw for 3 touchdowns. J.J. can't get one of them. And again, only 4 targets here. What's the path? This is the Commanders, one of the worst defenses. What is the path for Jefferson? I hate to say it, but in 2025, it's absolutely over. And look, some people don't really talk about, even last year, he wasn't quite as good. I do wonder if, I don't want to say Justin Jefferson is dust. That's insane, but Like, the quarterback play just has not been quite as good for Justin Jefferson recently. Certainly not going to get better in 2025. Let's hope it gets better in 2026, but I'm not convinced it will. And I don't think anything's going to get better for the Jets in 2025. I mean, we know Justin Fields was already hurt. Then Tyrod Taylor left on the first drive of the game with a groin injury, didn't come back. Now we're looking at rookie Brady Cook, who went 14 for 30, 163 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. This offense might somehow be significantly worse, and that is going to crush Breece Hall's value. Sure, he's still the guy here, 14 carries, didn't catch a pass in this game, but how good can any running back be in this Jets offense outside of smash matchups? And the problem is, not only does he not have smash matchups, he has terrible matchups. He gets the Jaguars in week 15 if you're somehow in your fantasy playoffs with Breece Hall. And then if somehow you make it to the championship game, which I doubt you're going to make it because of Breece Hall, gets the Patriots in week 17. Yeah, Breece Hall, if you're somehow still alive with Breece Hall, you cannot feel good going into the fantasy playoffs here with this guy in this Jets offense that now looks like it is easily the worst offense in the NFL. And then what has happened to Emeka Egbuka? Remember when this guy looked like league winner the first 5 weeks? Like, you drafted the league winning rookie, maybe the league winning rookie period in all of fantasy football. In weeks 1 through 5, he averaged over 20 points per game. In weeks 6 through 14, he's averaging 8.8 fantasy points per game. Single digit fantasy points in 7 of the last 8 games. That isn't even startable, and it has coincided with Baker Mayfield looking pretty bad. Ever since everybody said, Baker Mayfield, front runner for the MVP, it's like he's like, oh yeah, hold my beer. Here's the real Baker Mayfield. And he's been awful. This offense has been awful. Well, I shouldn't say the offense, but the passing game has been awful. Look, maybe if Mike Evans can come back this week on the short week, which sounds like he was close, maybe that will help the offense. Maybe that will help Egbuka. But look, in week 15, with your season on the line, can you really put Emeka Egbuka in your lineups? I don't think so. And then finally, I don't want to say I'm full on panicking about Chris Olave here. Maybe more just like getting a little nervous about Chris Olave. Okay, Devon Villay, I said yes to him way more times than I wanted to, and he was not great this week, but he did still lead the team in receiving yards and tied Chris Olave for the team lead in targets. But what's been the issue here is that ever since Tyler Shuck has become the quarterback, Chris Olave's target share has plummeted. With Spencer Rattler as QB, his target share was over 31%. With Tyler Shuck, it's barely over 20%. In this offense, with this low volume passing offense, and that's the other thing, Tyler Shuck runs way more than Spencer Rattler, so he attempts less passes. Chris Olave needs a massive target share. So look, Chris Olave, I'm not going to say like, again, I'm not full on panicked about Chris Olave. Like, it's over for Chris Olave, but the guy we saw for, 3/4 of the season, not sure we're going to get that guy with Tyler Shuck. Probably just more of like a floor play going forward. But you know what we are going to get rest of the season? All the content you need from Fantasy Endgame to help you dominate and win that championship. Make sure you're subscribed and watching Fantasy Endgame for all the content you need to dominate.